For First Freedom Day. I'm Peyton Luke, and I am sitting with two of our legal interns. So gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I know they keep you busy over there in the legal department with all kinds of projects.
John more than me.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is John and Joel, and we really appreciate you guys coming over here to talk to us for today. So both of you are very talented and hardworking, and you could be at a lot of different places doing your summer internship. So what made you choose First Liberty? So John, I'll start with you.
So to make a long story short, this was about 3 years ago. I was running an insurance brokerage at the time. It was my last job that I had before God called me to go back to law school. And I'd actually, this was about 2 years ago now, I was sitting on a plane coming home from Nashville, Tennessee, and I happened to be sitting next to someone who worked with Coach Kennedy on the case. She did some outside marketing and consulting work with him. She told me all about the case and said that I should look at First Liberty since she knew I was going back to law school. And so fast forward a year, I started going to law school. December comes around, that's when you start applying for internships, and First Liberty was at the top of the list.
That's awesome. Wow. That's incredible that you happened to be sitting next to someone that was involved in the Coach Kennedy case.
Probably a God thing.
Yeah, for sure. And what about you, Joel?
So I actually came into transitioning to a legal career from 10 plus years in pastoral ministry. So I was in the Washington, D.C. area. I pastored at a historic church that was actually tied up in the development of the religious liberty foundations of our country. And so I've always been really interested in religious liberty. And then about 8 years ago, my family moved to Oklahoma, and I began a ministry in the state capitol. And I currently serve as the chaplain of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. So I've always really worked kind of at that intersection of faith, religion, and the public square, politics and public life. And so the opportunity to navigate this transition from pastoral ministry into being an attorney, there's simply no better place to do that than here at First Liberty. Really see that intersection play out, both in big issues that are before the Supreme Court, development of the law, and also just the direct issues in defending clients that are under threat because of their faith.
That's really amazing. That makes you both so perfect for First Liberty, and so we're so honored to have you both here. So, of course, now I have to transition to the next question, which all of our interns have been asked today, and that is, what does religious liberty mean to you? And Joel, I'll start with you this time.
Well, a lot. My definition before I came to First Liberty, where I'm really learning more about what religious liberty in the law is, has always been that this is about an individual freedom to be a whole person in every arena of life. We are body, mind, and soul. And we don't just separate those aspects of ourselves. We take our whole self into every arena of life. And when we protect that ability of individuals, and it's so ingrained in just the DNA of being an American, and we don't even really think of it, but the freedom of religion is the very first freedom in the Bill of Rights. And when you think about it, that ability to be a whole person and have your beliefs, your conscience protected first, all of the following freedoms do flow from that, to freedom of speech, of press, of assembly, to air your grievances and petition the government for a remedy. All of that flows from that first core. I think it's part of our DNA as Americans, and we don't always realize that. We've got to protect it.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think like most people, I had thought that the freedom of religion was simply the freedom to believe what you wanted to believe. Mm-hmm. I was not intimately familiar with the background of the founding of this country as it relates to religion. And so that's probably a function partially of the education system and some cultural decline, which First Liberty is doing a great job at attacking. And I'm honored to be a part of it. But after being here for probably about 5-6 weeks now, you see that the founders of this country were coming out of a lot of historical oppression, where there was an establishment of religion expressly, and people were not able to worship as they saw fit to. And so you start to realize that not only is it my ability to profess a particular faith, but because as a religious person, I believe that my faith is at the heart of everything that I do, and that my duties to God center everything that I do in my life. If I'm not able to honor that conscience, then nothing in my life is truly free. And it's just paying lip service to the freedom that we should have in this country rather than actually being free. And so when you see cases like the Coach Kennedy case as an example, you see this restoration of faith in America in the legal system, you actually start to appreciate what our forefathers fought for several hundred years ago.
It's so encouraging to hear you both speak to it that way and to be so knowledgeable about that. And it's amazing because a lot of our generation doesn't see it that way, or they just don't understand. They don't understand their rights or even all of the details that are involved. What would you say to our generation and why religious freedom is so important?
Well, again, I think we take it for granted. It is very core to just the American experience. The fact that we do have such individual liberty and autonomy, we think of that in other freedoms, other rights that we have, and we just don't realize that the foundational principle of that goes back to this core belief that you as an individual have a freedom to believe in God and to practice that faith in God. That is such a foundational core part of what it is to just be an American, and all these other freedoms flow from it. My challenge and encouragement would be to take some time thinking about what are the freedoms, what are the rights that you just know you have, because we all know what those different rights may be, and we think of them in legal terms and contexts, but think about how underneath that right is an inalienable freedom to believe in God, to believe in the guiding of your own conscience, and to act in that in a manner that's consistent with it. It really is the motivating freedom that we have, and just take some time thinking about that and putting it together. If you believe in a particular issue and you want to advocate for it or protest something that you see as an injustice, underneath that is a freedom to believe that something is not just. And our founders, I think, very wisely framed that in this context of that greater duty to an ultimate justice giver.
John, would you like to tag on to that and what you would say to our generation?
Sure. I'll echo that, and I'll say that I think the reason why a lot of people don't give much thought to the first freedom, to the freedom of conscience, the freedom of religion, is because most people of our generation don't think enough about what it is to have a faith. I think something like half of Americans identify as atheist as their religion. And so if you're asking yourself, why am I unhappy in life? Of course, as a professing Christian myself, my first answer is going to be because you're looking in all the wrong places. And so I think as a part of restoring people's value towards the first freedom is people being honest with themselves that what they're looking for, whether it be in the bottle or whether it be with money, they're looking in all the wrong places, and to first consider why they're miserable, because we were made for a particular reason. We were made to honor and glorify God. And if you don't believe that, then of course you're not going to have reverence for the freedom of religion. At best, you're going to say that other people are welcome to do that, but that's not for me. And what the founders of this country, were they all one particular religion? No, but they all believed that it was such a sacrosanct right that it was worth upholding and codifying as the first freedom in the First Amendment. So I would challenge people who aren't actively thinking about this, particularly of our generation. Ask yourself what you truly believe, because the attack from people who are ill-motivated is going to continue. It's going to get worse, and we need more people on the front lines fighting, like those of us here. We can't do it alone. And so I would encourage people to really think about their own personal faith, to go down that journey so that they can have reverence for the first freedom.
The amazing thing is about personal faith and the work we do even here at First Liberty is we defend all faiths, because if it's infringed upon for one faith, it's coming for the next one and the next one. So our job and duty at First Liberty is to defend and restore religious liberty for all of the religions as well. And I think that's something that not everyone always understands about First Liberty. And so that's an amazing core part of who we are. And it is an honor to defend religious liberty for all here at First Liberty. And as you were both talking about earlier, you both had careers before you went to law school. So I would love to hear about what made you to decide to transition from your former career now to law school. And John, I can start with you.
Sure. I think the simplest answer is I was tired of pursuing something that I didn't feel was actually valuable, that had, let's say, eternal value to it. So I spent my 20s chasing money, and at the end of my 20s, I had a bank account to show for it, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And I think a lot of people can relate to that in some way, where they're trying to find a greater cause and a greater movement to belong to. And I think that actually animates people both on the right side of the political aisle and the left side of the political aisle. And so at the end of my 20s, I found myself, I wouldn't say miserable, but certainly unhappy, because just showing up to a job every day, yes, it's worthwhile, you're adding value to the economy, but it seems like there's something more. And so at the tail end of that, I was running an insurance brokerage. I was traveling 3 weeks out of every month, which admittedly as a single person is not the same as doing it as a married person, but it's still a lot. And I have a family at home, and it was starting to weigh heavily on me. And so I found myself in an Airbnb in Western Pennsylvania, sitting on a bed for hours praying, and I felt the call to go back to law school. And also I had been following some lawfare that had been happening in the country, in addition to the Kennedy case. Right about that time, there was also stuff going on in Wisconsin with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. And so I saw what was going on. I knew that God had given me certain gifts, certain talents, and I wanted to be able to use those for his highest and best interest. And so it seemed natural to me to go contend for the faith and contend for other people's faiths. I just didn't know what that looked like until I was introduced to First Liberty.
And Joel, what about you?
Well, somewhat of a boring answer. I always wanted to go to law school, and I regret that I waited as long as I did. I'm the guy in class that just loves being in class and loves the conversation, drives all of my peers crazy because I
keeps
like
them
it
on
so
their
much.
toes.
Yeah,
Keeps them on
bit.
toes.
But
you can have debates in class then. Gets
Yes.
the energy up.
But I spent 10 years in pastoral ministry at a church, and so I saw from that side of the table, so to speak, some of the issues that were coming up, things that I knew that we needed to be thinking about from a legal perspective, that we didn't know how to think about them. So I could start to sense that there was a need to learn more about the law and where really competent and called attorneys can serve churches in particular, but religious institution schools as well better. And then for the last many years, I've been really working in politics, basically. I'm non-political, I'm non-lobbying as the chaplain. I work with every member of the House, and I've just navigated this tension, directly, that we are feeling and experiencing in our politics, an inability to navigate our disagreements, and an inability to do it with any sort of respect or civility. And what I really started to see from that perspective is that we are losing this sense of belief that we can talk about our differences, and we can navigate those in a productive way to find a better solution. And I saw what was really missing, and what is missing in some of our public discourse when it comes to politics in general, is a sense of a shared foundation, a common language. And I really do believe that we actually have a really strong foundation in our country, which is we are governed by the rule of law. And it gives us a forum, ironically, because it's an adversarial system. We go into that courtroom to fight, But it is a strong and sturdy foundation that lets us actually navigate real differences and disagreements, and do it in a way that provides a remedy and a way forward. And so I saw a lot of what I was doing both in ministry, working in a church and working with people that need church and need churches to minister to them and their community, and also just working in this political space and realizing that a career in the law and legal training will allow me to take the work that I've been doing to a whole nother level, to provide better counsel to people that are trying to navigate serious problems and find solutions. So a law degree was just the missing piece in my life, and I'm thrilled that I am at a stage of life that I do have a family, I do have a wife and 2 little girls, and to suddenly find myself at this stage with a time that was just perfect to go to law school and get that missing piece and take what I've done to another level is God's hand in it.
Well, everyone's story is different. Everyone's story is unique. And so it gives me such encouragement and hope for the future with both of you, rising into the law world and the legal world. And, I'm going to be excited to see you guys take off. And I hope that your time here at First Liberty has been rich and eye-opening and educational with everything. But it gives me encouragement to hear both your hearts, because, there are stereotypes about attorneys. And I would say, being someone that works very closely with the attorneys at First Liberty, their hearts are amazing. They're so pure, they're so passionate. They could be somewhere else making a whole lot more money. And that's not what they're about. They're about the cause. They're about the passion and for religious liberty and just our country as a whole. So, but it gives me encouragement that our generation has you guys in it, and that y'all will be there someday fighting the fight just like them. And you're currently in your classrooms as well with your peers. So, of course. So thank you both for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today for First Freedom Day. We have one more segment coming your way. But again, if you would like the opportunity to be involved with our $500,000 challenge grant between now and June 30th, you still have the opportunity. Feel free to go to firstliberty.org and you'll get the information right there. But thank you so much for watching. First Liberty, fighting for what matters.